Archaeologist
with Stephen Blondo. Hi, I'm Stephen. I'm an archaeologist. Let's answer a question.
How often do you find new artifacts, and what kind of artifacts do you normally find?
Great question. Archaeologists like to divide artifacts into prehistoric and historic based on how old they are. I find a lot of nails. Most are rusty. Sometimes we find buttons or glass, pieces of historic pottery like pieces of bowls, plates, or cups, but only on historic archaeological sites. One of my favorite things to find are ceramic sherds. Rarely do we find whole pots or even big pieces. Sometimes there's fingerprints in the clay from someone making the pot hundreds or thousands of years ago. We find a lot of rocks. Some are just rocks, others are grooved like this hammerstone. Stone tools are called lithics. They come in a variety of colors representing the raw materials used. Prehistoric peoples knapped flints and cherts to make tools. Small unusable flakes and debris make up the largest amount of what we find. When we're lucky enough to find them, projectile points are a great window to the past.
What is the coolest thing you found?
I get this question a lot. Some people think that a dinosaur bone would rank as the coolest thing I've ever found. But everyone knows dinosaurs and fossils belong to paleontologists. My story starts with a historic house that needed a new foundation. Before moving the house, we did archaeological testing to see if anything was there. We dug some shovel tests, small holes to look at soil and artifacts. We found some lithic flakes and debris and prehistoric ceramics, so we dug a bigger hole called a test unit to get a better look at what was going on. As the soil was excavated, it was put in a screen to separate the dirt from rocks and artifacts. As the dirt went through the screen, a large spear point appeared. We bagged the point and brought it to the lab to clean it and identify it. It was identified as a 10,000-year-old Agate Basin Spear Point from the Paleo-Indian period.
How do you think it got there?
Another great question. To answer this, we have to briefly discuss the geology of Minnesota and how the environment has changed since the Ice Age. During the Ice Age, Minnesota's climate was colder and glaciers receded and advanced for thousands of years. The last glacial advance is called the Wisconsin Glaciation and spanned 100,000 to 10,000 years ago. About 12,000 years ago, the glaciers began to recede and melt, and they formed Lake Agassiz. It was a big lake with a maximum depth of 400 feet. Lake Agassiz drained and formed an outlet river known as Glacial River Warren. This large cut is known today as the Minnesota River Valley. We like to interpret sites and make up stories. I like to think of a group of hunters and families following this river into the area known today as Minnesota. They wouldn't recognize the area today. It's warmer, and there's more buildings and roads. As the snow began to fall, the landscape was blanketed in fresh snow, making tracking game easier. What were they hunting? During this time, Minnesota was inhabited by megafauna, large animals like mammoth and mastodons, giant sloths, and bison occidentalis, the ancestor of today's bison. So back to our story. The hunters are looking over the valley at the bison, who are scratching the snow and looking for lunch. I think that one of the hunters loaded a spear point to a shaft and set it onto the spear on his atlatl. Here's a video of how the atlatl works. It increases the speed and accuracy and power of the spear, making it easier to hunt and kill large game. Wasn't that cool? Watch it again in slow motion. So anyways, back to our story. I'm not sure if the spear point was dropped or if the dart or spear missed, but the unbroken point was left on the ground. The environment changed. Minnesota warmed up, more people came to the state, roads were built, houses and businesses, and one day, a guy starts doing some archaeology before a historic house gets a new foundation. And as the dirt gets screened, he finds a 10,000-year-old Agate Basin Point and wonders how it got there. But our story doesn't end there. The project plans were changed and the historic house still got a foundation, but the site where the Paleo Point came from was protected. Years after entering the 21st century, the 10,000-year-old point was scanned with a 3D scanner at the University of Minnesota. The digital image was printed on a 3D printer. And I wonder what the hunter who napped the point out of shirt 10,000 years ago would think about our technology today. But that's just my story about how that point ended up out there.